Welcome into T4G Sports. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. Today we're going to talk about Penn State. Is Penn State primed to go 11-1 or even 12-0 possibly this season? And I know it's a stretch. I know it's not going to be easy. The Big Ten's getting tougher. College football's getting tougher. But Penn State is one of those teams that if they did go 11-1 or even 12-0, would I truly be shocked? No, I wouldn't. Penn State produces 33 NFL players in the last 5 years alone. And before we jump into this, guys, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, click the notification bell, and let's light it up. Now, I want to bring up some stat lines for Penn State because I want people to understand how really good Penn State is. I know that they don't always win. I understand that. And people will say they're good on paper. They have this NFL talent. But it's so tough to win in college football. It's so tough to win. And Penn State is terrifying. Ask an Ohio State fan. Ask a Michigan fan. They are not fun to play. If you have to go play at Penn State, you're afraid. I don't care how good your team is. You should be afraid. Penn State is one of only 3 schools who have had a player drafted in the first 3 rounds over the past 18 years. The other 2 schools are the University of Southern California and Louisiana State University. Think about that. With 6 picks, Penn State is one of 4 schools to produce at least 5 picks in each of the last 6 NFL drafts, joining Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. Think about it. You think that's easy to do? You think that's an easy stat? No way. That is so tough to do. And the entire time, everyone just goes, oh, you lose to Ohio State, you lose to Michigan, you guys aren't taken seriously. And yet, who's beating Ohio State and Michigan? Really, pick the teams up who are beating them. And in Missouri, in some of the bowl games, to me, I don't count the bowl games to the level of other people. I don't do that because the bowl games are suspect to all different kinds of scrutiny. Okay, but who's beating Ohio State and Michigan? Michigan just won the Natty. The only team to beat Ohio State's the team who won the Natty. Aside from that, Penn State had close games with both of those teams. So if you look at Penn State in its entirety and you look at what they produce, they're a beast. They're a juggernaut football team. So Penn State has had a lot of guys drafted, okay, but they also have a very good core base. They've lost a lot of players, there's no doubt, but they are a team that reloads every single year. They just got Julian Fleming from Ohio State. They have a really good running back. They have Drew Aller, the quarterback, who's going into his junior year. They have a good core base. Their defense is tough as nails. They'll be a top 5, top 10 defense this year, in my opinion. Again, they were a top 3 defense last year. They're a stellar defense, and I think their defense is really going to separate them. At least it should, on paper. Theoretically, it should separate them from majority of other teams. Okay, and there's going to be few teams that are going to be able to bully their defense. Very few teams that are going to be able to bully their defense, if any at all. So to start this year off, you got West Virginia, and you have to play out West Virginia. You played West Virginia last year. You beat them, but it was a scrappy game. It was a scrappy game, particularly in the first half. Then you have 2 preseason games, basically. You have Bowling Green and Kent State. They have to come to Beaver Stadium, obviously, and you're just going to beat them up. Then you have to play Illinois, and this is a game that you just can't take lightly because Illinois gets more players drafted than you would think. Illinois has a better roster than most people. You know, they see Illinois and they're like, they're not good at all. That's not true. It's just not true. So Illinois is a team that they know how to get at Penn State. They have the talent to be able to get at them, but they don't have the talent to be able to usually do it for 4 quarters. Okay, so that's where Illinois drops off. They just don't have the full gas tank to be able to last 4 quarters with Penn State. Now, they can. There's been years that they have had that, but it's just not an average for them. They do play well against Penn State, though. So this is a game you have to take very seriously. Okay, so I think they're going to end up winning by the second half. They're just going to overwhelm Illinois eventually. If they don't, I'm not going to be completely shocked by it because you know, that's Illinois for you. That's Big Ten football. They could come back and just make it a game when they shouldn't. And that's just the way it works. But I still think Penn State pulls this one out. So you're looking at 4-0. You got UCLA. They lost so many players. They lost Dante Moore, their quarterback. They have lost players in the draft. They also lost their head coach. They don't like spending a lot on NIL. it's not looking good for UCLA to come to Beaver Stadium and think they're going to bully Penn State. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. So I think that they win 5 games here. Then you got USC. Now, the thing about USC, you're playing at USC. Your fans are going to travel, you know that, but USC fans are also going to be hyped for this as well. Okay? And USC is going to be in better form at this time of the year than they would be in the beginning of the year, in my opinion. So it could be a little bit of a tight game, but I think by the second half, I think Penn State's they're gonna claim the lead and they're not gonna look back. Then you got to play at Wisconsin. Okay, these are two tough. These next 3 weeks for them after UCLA are very tough because you got to play at USC, at Wisconsin. Then you have to welcome the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's terrible. So these 3 weeks are probably the most important 3 weeks of their season. Okay, very important. So beating USC, I think they'll do that. Wisconsin's got a big team. I think at the end, I think it could be a very close game. If it's not, I'll be impressed. I will really be impressed. If Penn State goes into Wisconsin and just dominates them, look out. Look out. That's a game I'll be watching very closely. So if they beat them, that's going to be tough because then they'll be riding a high going into Ohio State playing at home. They have not beat Ohio State in eons. They keep it close every year. They lose like by 7 points almost every time that they play Ohio State. So, and this is Ohio State's big year too. They reloaded more than any team in college football right now. So this week here, this is where I have the 11-1 because I think Ohio State at the end, they have so much power on that team that if they don't pull it off, I think it would be shocking. However, I think Penn State is a good enough football team that can shock Ohio State just 1 week. That's all you need, just one time. Maybe you play them in the playoff later on and they beat you. However, you just need to shock them one time. That's it. Just one time. And I think there's a possibility of that. I think if you're an Ohio State fan, I think there's 2 teams that you're scared of the most every single year, and it's obvious. It's not Michigan State. It's none of those. Even when Michigan State was doing good, people were like, oh, Michigan State's scary, not as much Penn State. No, I don't believe that. It's always Penn State and Michigan. Those are your 2 scariest football teams. 2 scariest. So for Ohio State, this is going to be a battle. I'm telling you right now, this is going to be an absolute bloodbath. And I think Penn State could take the lead. They could win. But I also think that Ohio State is just so powerful that theoretically they should win by even maybe 2 touchdowns. And that's shocking, but it's there. Ohio State's that scary. So we'll see what happens here. I'm putting a question mark around this game here. Okay. And if they go 11-1, what's the big deal? Washington, I just think Washington coming into Beaver Stadium, I don't think they're going to be able to compete for an extended period of time. And then you got to go play at Purdue. So right here, you just have to take this game seriously. And I know it's Purdue, but Purdue can sneak up on you quick, and you're playing at Purdue. So you gotta go and handle business. Okay, you cannot take this week off. I think they beat them. I think they beat Minnesota. And guess who they don't have to play this year? Michigan. They don't have to play Michigan. This is the first year since they've joined the Big Ten that they don't have to play Michigan. I believe so. It's been decades at this point in time that they have had to play Michigan and Ohio State every year, and this is the first time that the chains came off. And they're like, hey, you don't have to go through the gauntlet now. You don't have to play Oregon this year. You don't have to play Michigan. Nope, you have to play Ohio State. You got to play USC. This is a favorable schedule for Penn State because these last 3 weeks, even though these are tough teams, Penn State has shown that they could beat them. So if they go through this 3-week gauntlet here, and they go through that and they clean up what they should in the beginning of the year, they're going to be set up perfectly to almost go undefeated. This is why I think Penn State, this is their year, truly their year to either go 11-1 or 12-0 and go win themselves a Big Ten championship, set themselves up perfectly for the playoff. I think they're going to the playoff. I don't think there's a way to stop them. And I think when Penn State goes to the playoff and every year that they go, I think they are going to make a name for themselves, and they are going to show the world how scary it is to actually play Penn State. To all the people who said, no, Penn State always loses to Michigan and Ohio State. You don't have to worry about them. Just wait. Just wait. Remember where you heard it first. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments.